started the project on the 4th of July because I decided to call the project The Pursuit of Happiness, the pursuit of happiness being one of the freedoms in the Declaration of Independence. And I hope to have it finished by September the 13th, which is my birthday, which was about 10 weeks later. And I would have had it finished, except that Hurricane Ike came through on the 13th of September, and I ended up putting a lot of the final touches on the piece just during daylight hours, since we lost our power for a couple of weeks as a result of the hurricane. The vision for The Pursuit of Happiness came from a trip that my husband and I took to China several years ago. We had gone to see to Xi'an, the Terracotta Warriors. Terracotta Warriors were a creation of the first emperor of China in around 250 BC. He had commissioned all of the artisans in his kingdom to create some 10,000 warriors. They were archers, they were cavalry, they had horses, they had chariots, they had standing warriors, warriors with spears, warriors with lances. Each piece was individually designed and cast. It was hand-painted, and they were positioned, lined up to face the enemy lines of the emperor. The emperor's thought was that he wanted these warriors lined up to go with him into the afterlife, thereby ensuring both his safety, the safety of the empire, and most importantly, I think for him, his own personal happiness. And I thought about that concept after we got back from China, and I thought there's a certain universality in that idea of wanting to ensure personal happiness through the material as opposed to the spiritual. And I was thinking about the idea, interestingly enough, of designer shoes in 21st century America and the way many women find it almost a compulsion to accumulate shoes, particularly high status shoes, designer shoes, wanting to have material items to ensure your status, your feelings of power, your feelings of wealth, and how, notwithstanding centuries of difference and cultural differences and gender differences, that's really the same dynamics and the same thoughts that the first emperor of China had. So I thought, what about creating an artistic piece based on the idea of shoe warriors? I came up with the thought that I would set the shoes up so they looked like they were in battalions and in legions, part of an army, and I would create an army of shoe warriors. I also thought contrast between the material and the spiritual might be depicted if I created this piece as a triptych. So it has a triptych format to indicate my own spiritual happiness in creating the piece. I love the tactile feeling of creating the shoes, and the repetition frees my mind and I'm able to meditate. I really enjoy that part of the process. The other part that I really like is that paper has a life of its own. When you transform it, it whispers, it makes sounds, it makes noises, as it evolves from one form, which is a plain piece of paper, into an entirely object, in this case, part of the work of art. I want to show you a few things about the way I created the piece. The first thing I did is I decided, since it was about my own personal happiness, that I would pick only the colors that I love. So I picked out colors that I happen to really, really enjoy, and that's one element. The other thing is the particular pattern that I used was inspired by, interestingly enough, a Japanese pattern for a high-heeled shoe, and the pattern, the origami pattern, is designed to fold dollar bills. So that in itself is kind of an interesting sidelight. The pattern that I chose comes from a material folding of a dollar bill to create what for me is a spiritual piece. The designer of that pattern is Makoto Yamaguchi of Japan. One of the things about this project that is so significant, and what I hope will have some meaning to whoever sees it, is a reminder about the nature of true happiness, the freedom that we have to pursue happiness, and the nature of what happiness is for different people, and to remember that the process of happiness is every bit as important as arriving